And welcome back. Well, now let's focus on the Northern Hemisphere of Rugby League as we move on to round 12 of the Betfred Super League. Starting off on Friday morning locally here in Australia, the Lee Leopards back at the Sports Village against the Walking Wounded of Hull FC.
Walking wounded. Yes, you have to be correct in saying that. They have gone backwards after, a few weeks ago they were in the top four, and now they've slipped out of the playoffs altogether.
Both sides will be looking for a confidence boosting win, especially now that Wigan and Hull KR are starting to open up again that lead at the top end of the table. But I mean, in all honesty, I got to feel sorry for Jordan Rapiner because that was an ugly situation when he went down injured at Headingley in that narrow loss to the Leeds run. I know you don't want to see anything about that. Meantime, less of an injury concern for for Adrian Lamb, Gareth O'Brien, in failing his HIA, and thus will be automatically stood down under the concussion protocol. So Ben McNamara most likely to continue partnering Lachlan Lamb in the halves. Very unfortunate the Leopards didn't actually win that game against Wigan. And they got in tight with it, but they just couldn't overcome that deficit they conceded early on.
Yeah, look, they come back strong, but Wigan obviously had too much of a lead on them and were just that too good. Like we know Wigan can do. I'm not saying that Leah are a bad side. Like they're sitting currently third on the ladder, so they just didn't quite the strength to get there in the end.
The slow start is what I think killed Lee to begin with, because they were playing some good footy after Wigan got that early lead established. Jay Field was really opening them up down the left hand side, and Edwin Apape dragged them back into the game, and you felt like, even with 20 minutes to go, you still felt like Lee might be a chance here until Cruz leaving cross for that try late in the piece, a quarter of the game left still to go. So against a top quality opposition like that, I felt League have a good mark of where they need to still be at the moment. And I mean, having David Armstrong not play for them moments before kickoff as well probably hurt their chances as well. I mean, Bailey Hodgson filled in at fullback after them as well. But there's still a lot to like, and even with where Hull FC have found themselves, there's still a lot to like about the black and whites as well.
Struggled over the last couple of seasons, let's just say that. And what they were up as high as, didn't they get the lead at one stage not that long ago on the table overall?
I think so.
And now it's slipped out, but they will find their form again. They will bounce back and they will get there, start pile on points and getting the wins again and getting back up to where they were a couple of weeks ago.
John Cartwright, depending on who else might be fit for for Hull FC, he might be able to play this a couple of ways because he doesn't have Ed Cartwright available. He doesn't have Jordan Lane available. He's had Zach Hardacre and Ed Chamberlain, his current edge back rows at the moment. Do you bring Tom Briscoe into the centres as he was on the interchange not too long ago, or do you try and move Hardacre or Chamberlain back into the centres and then hope that one of your edge forwards might actually be fit to take to the pitch?
I'd probably currently leave it as is and bring Tom Briscoe in via the bench just to play it safe for now until they have an edge forward that is fit, and then they'll probably swap around. And that's what I would be doing if I was head coach at the moment. But I mean, they might have a different view of it all and that sort of stuff. They get paid the big bucks.
And on the case of the edge forwards at the moment, it's really been a situation where John Cartwright has been forced into it at the moment. Of all the players Hull FC have used up to this point, of course, Ollie Holmes, recruit from the Lee Leopards, he's only played once all year long on Fulham, hasn't really featured in the conversations. How we say, Brad Fash, he only came back in that game after a previous 5-week layoff. Liam Knight, front row. Jordan Lane hasn't been seen since the quarter final when he went down with injury. Jed Cartwright, not seen since round 6. So he's really been hit hard in the back row position when it comes down to it. In the case of Jed Cartwright, we already just touched him. So he'll be hoping to get some players back that he didn't have at the start of the year, but still not looking likely at this point in time, you'd have to say.
At this point in time, no. But we're, not even quite halfway yet throughout the season. Very, very close to it, I would believe. There's still got time to bounce back. And I think they will. They'll get injuries and all that to come back. They'll be there or thereabouts.
No Holmes, no Jordan Lane, no Cartwright has really hurt them. And I think that's where Lee will look to attack in particular with the edge row of pairings being so fragile. I think, for me, Lee will be more comfortable at home. They'll really try and intimidate Holosea, especially with Herman SES. He'll be the big one to try and nail down. John Asiata going up against his old club, I think for the first time this season, actually.
That sounds about correct. Yes.
Actually, no, this will be the second time since they played out that 22-all draw. But this will be Asiata's first trip back to the Lee Sports Village since then.
You probably want to get one back on his old club. But the rate the whole FC are going,
I think they've just been hit hard since the quarter-final loss to Hull KR. That's when all the injuries occur. Erden, they've just been on a downward spiral since. It's only one win in the last 5 league fixtures.
That's hurting.
Which, yeah, it's not exactly the most ideal situation of it, and they could really use someone like a Joe Westerman just to try and stiffen the edge up. But I'm actually liking the Lee Leopards in this one. I think they weren't too far away in that battle against Wigan. I think they'll take a lot of confidence out of that. Losing O'Brien's goal kicking will hurt them, but if they get David Armstrong back, I think that'll be more than a worthy substitution. So I think Lee 1-6 at home. It's a narrow win.
It's going to be a tight matchup. Like, I shouldn't say really tight because Holosea, like you said, have been going on a downhill spiral. Lee are still performing very well. I'm going to go the Leopards win this one 7-12.
Yeah, they're currently sitting third on the table. I think they'll be looking to try and hang on to a top 4 finish as they try and set themselves up for the second half of the season. Now, speaking of in trouble, we have the early Wembley preview between the Warrington Wolves and Hull KR. Warrington back at home once again, but not exactly the way Sam Burgess would have hoped to have them come back.
Certainly not after they got thrashed by Wakefield, 40 points to 10 at the DIY Kitchen Stadium.
It wasn't the best look for Sam Burgess. He wouldn't have been happy with the result, even with the amount of players he lost in the run-up to that game out of the Challenge Cup semi-final win over Lee not too long ago as well. Look, he'll be looking for a reset, but Hull KR, they'll be practically full strength once again. And even though they were a little bit slow to start against the Huddersfield Giants, they came through in the second half off the back of that spark out of Mikey Lewis.
Well, who was it? Like, Hull KR up 4-0, only 4-0 at half time, which is probably where you're referring to the slow start. But then
against the Huddersfield Giants, no less.
Yeah, that is very true.
But
then they piled on 30 points, whereas Warrington were only 8 points behind Wakefield at half time. But they were scoreless in the second half, so...
Yeah, Mark Sneed dragged them back within competitive range, but it was just overwhelmed. I mean, they just found space way too easily, Wakefield, especially through the front door. Caius Faatili, he's just done it again.
Absolutely.
And Josh Griffin had a good game as well. I will say that for Darryl Powell, a second home win in for him keeping Wakefield in a healthy position on the table. No Bill Leyland expected for Willie Peters' side. He unfortunately done his ankle against the Giants. He wasn't too sure on severity, but it'd be long odds for him to feature again come this weekend's action. But Warrington have had just as many struggles, also with missing players as well. Of course, George Williams, he's been missing now for the last 5 weeks after the Challenge Cup quarter-final game in round 7.
Still probably missing a couple more weeks yet.
And Toby King, he's not featured. He was rested, I think, perhaps from the Challenge Cup semi-final. I don't know if my memory serves me, they might have been rested or he could have gone down injured.
I think he was rested. That rings a bell. I could be wrong.
It might be entirely possible he was rested for that result. Oh, and of course, a couple of other things have gone against the Wire as well that wouldn't have gone down to them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. In that game that they had, after the Challenge Cup semi-final. No Josh Viewers, no Toby King. They lost Matty Ashton for the rest of the year. No Lachlan Fitzgibbon. And it showed. It genuinely showed for Sam Burgess.
So they'll probably be struggling to start coming back now for the back after the season with all those key players out for like mid to long term injuries and that, like Matty Ashton, who's gone for the year. He's such a key player for that Warrington side. But
he's such a key strike player. It really does hurt. Hull KR, of course, they've been flying high once again at the top of the table. Ever since round 2, not dropped from first place.
Yeah.
Even with one loss, they have not dropped.
That's unbelievable. It shows that they're real contenders and that they're going to, Wembley?
In 3 weeks from now.
In 3 weeks for the Challenge Cup. Could they do a triple? Get the Challenge Cup? Get the League Leaders Shield?
Realistically, the treble is alive, so this is now... they'll meet one more time at the end of the year in round 27 at Craven Park, but this is basically... The road is, Warrington, for Hull KR's point of view, it's Warrington Saints, Warrington, heading into Catalan at home, and they don't have to leave the country until the 19th round. So they got a good opportunity, including good spacing of home games and some curious opponents in and amongst that.
The problem is the Wembley hangover. They've got that to deal with as well.
Look, they're still in a healthy position.
Oh, absolutely they
at the moment. I don't know how Warrington are going to bounce back. If they get George Williams back, that might help them somewhat.
But he's out for a while still, so...
The forward battle will be evened up, though. They don't have Jared Waerea-Hargreaves after he got suspended for one match.
Typical.
It does seem a little bit typical. Oh, and that would actually be his first charge after...
I was going to say, that's the first Giants. Yeah, exactly, so... He's more behaved over in England than what he was out here in Australia.
So if he gets some key reinforcements back, that might be a different story right there. But they didn't have any direction and their defence really suffered. And going up against practically the best attack in the league, or the second best attack, I'm not liking your chances, even if it is a home game. I think Hull KR once again will be, even without Waerea-Hargreaves, we might see Jai Whitbread line up in the front row alongside Suaso Su. I still think the Robins will be way too strong for this one. For me, it's Hull KR. They win 7-12. I think Mikey Lewis will be looking to light the stage up again.
Well, going on what you're saying by the best attack, they are the best attack this year, from what I can gather. Closely followed by Wigan. So I think this is an easy victory for Hull KR. I think this one 13-20.
Yeah, it does seem that way. And who knows, maybe the result might be reversed and Warrington end up winning at Wembley. Wouldn't that be a nice surprise?
It definitely would be a nice...
But if they get George Williams back, I think we could see the Warrington Wolves better for the rest of the season.
Waiting on George Williams for that Wembley game?
He could be there, realistically.
It might be.
It was, last I remember, it was 2 months from the point we said. So it'll be 6 weeks. He might be back in the next 2. He could be in time for Wembley. I don't know.
Could be a sneaky little play there from Sam Burgess.
It's not sneaky. He's just waiting patiently to get him back.
But it could be like here we go. We can start looking good now with the combination of Sneed and Williams.
Well, we'll see how that one eventually ends up playing out, but they do need to start turning a corner soon, otherwise the season's going to fall away very fast.
See you later.
Speaking of seasons that have fallen away fast, the Huddersfield Giants will take on a resurgent and revived St Helens side.
Yes, St Helens, thrashed Catalans 40 points to 0.
Out of nowhere.
And half of them just half of those points was scored at half time. Whereas Huddersfield, they're with it in, as we just mentioned, in the first half, but then just went nights.
That'll be deflating for Luke Robinson to be, for the longest time, up against the Robins, only conceding one try before getting blown away at the back end of it. And they've also picked up their own injury concerns as well.
Mm-hmm.
Matty English sustained a facial injury in that contact with JWH.
Hence his suspension.
So he's now in doubt for the clash against St Helens at the John Smith Stadium. So it's not looking good for Huddersfield. It hasn't looked good for them all year long. It just hasn't.
I mean, they got that one win against a defeated Salford side.
Matt Whitley came off with a head knock, so he won't be featuring on the road at the John Smith Stadium either. But they just looked better, Saints, didn't they?
Way better. The Saints that we are used to seeing was back against that game. Excuse me. Especially against an opposition like Catalans. I thought Catalans would put up more of a fight than what they did. They were very poor, in my opinion.
This was Johnny Lomax's first starting in position. First game starting since he got dropped after the quarter-final shambles.
And look at the result.
Yes, everything just seemed to flow. The passes stuck. They managed to pull Catalan apart, both right, left, and centre, but the left edge really got worked up over big time.
Absolutely.
George Whitby, what about that? His kicking game was phenomenal too. We're talking about now. This was his sixth appearance for the season in league, and cup ties as well. Only 18 years of age. What does he do? Comes up with a hat trick and near flawless with the boo.
Big future. Big future. One player to watch in the next probably 3-4 years, maybe 5 years.
It'd be pretty close, but I think importantly it keeps Paul Whelan's job safe for another week. At least after a spluttering attack for 3 straight weeks, to then suddenly run in the amount of tries that they did, I think he'll like that. Of course, we're still waiting on Carl Felt to come back. No word on him just yet. Joe Batchelor hasn't played in the last 3, so there's still questions about when he comes back. Now you've got Matt Whitley that's out, so whether Jake Wingfield moves into the starting pack somewhere or they bring someone else in to start, perhaps.
Perhaps.
But if they get players back as well, that also helps their case. You think Tristan Saylor, curious case. First he was used as a standoff, then moved to fullback, now he's on the wing. You think he stays out in the wing or he moves a little bit closer into the ball at one stage?
At one stage, I think he'll move closer into the ball because we know what he's capable of. He's got speed. He's a bit of a... He can be another attacking kicking option. Not a big option, but options there. He's capable of doing it when they need to be. So, he'll be there in the squad somewhere. They won't drop him anytime soon unless suspension or injuries occur.
The important thing is confidence for St Helens at this point because they can beat up teams either equal to them or below them on the table. But then they really need to match it when it comes to the big sides. I think there's another good opportunity for the Saints here because Huddersfield are just...
woeful?
Yes. I think that's really the only word that you can use at the moment. And Luke Robinson, things, they just don't work out.
No.
They have not worked out one single bit up to this point. If we look at the table at the moment, Huddersfield have actually lost all their home games to this point.
Wow.
They have not won at home. 5 times they've played, 5 times they've been beaten up and outscored almost 3-1.
That's crazy.
I know.
So much about our home ground advantage. More like home ground disadvantage.
Their only win was at Magic Weekend, which is saying something. Second worst attack in the league at the moment, only ahead of Salford by a margin of 47. Second worst defence in the league, so they're at minus 200 on the differential.
Yep.
And they've cycled through more players because injuries just dogged them.
I think that's what hurt Huddersfield this year, though. Like, they had the team to fight for playoffs and that, but injuries and that just have not been there for them.
I don't think they've had the team to fight for playoffs one bit.
Well, weren't they up there a year or 2 ago? They were fighting up there.
They haven't looked likely. I mean, they only got George King back. Now that Matty English has been ruled out after being on the bench for the last 3 weeks, so he's gone. And I'm not sure who else is expected back in the short term.
Possibly no one at this stage.
But their defence has just been, like Salford, their defence has just been woeful.
But it's probably better than Salford.
That's not saying much.
Well, I know, it's setting the bar pretty low, isn't it? So
it's one of those, and that's the unfortunate thing about Super League, because unlike the NRL, results are a lot harder to predict. Super League, and as much as I like to think that the best English players can match it with the Aussies, the competition does have its weaknesses.
oh, absolutely it does.
If you don't have a wealthy benefactor, you're not going to be able to retain star players, and if you don't have the right setup, you're going to get blown off the park. They just haven't generated anything in attack. That's just the truth. They have not generated anything in attack. Like Tuiloa here, not seen since round 6. What, is he still injured? Is he just really probably actually
still
is?
together?
He probably still is injured. That's probably the thing. It's just the injuries that have mounted up.
Just what about an update would be nice, so we know what's going on.
Adam Clune, he's only been back for the last 2, so including that win against Hull FC, so trying to get something on the board at the moment. But when they actually do get all these players back, their first choice players, are they going to be any different off to where they are now?
Look, it will probably take a couple of weeks when they get a full strength side together. If they get a full strength side together this year, they will improve still. They will improve, but it won't be enough to make the playoffs come the season's end. Personally, I think
I don't know where they're going to go from this one. But what I do know is St. Helens are still healthy, and if they can string wins together before they take on another tough opponent, their season's back on track.
Which, knowing St. Helens, they can do that.
It's Saints 13-20. I think they're going to be in for another big scoring affair. Just the Giants' defense is just not up to scratch one bit.
Well, I'm going to say. Yeah, I'm going to say St. Helens win this one. 21 plus. They're going to destroy the Giants left, right, and centre and across the entire park.
It's just unfortunate, but
it's just a class difference. Even with a struggling Saints side this year.
Now, this is going to be a very interesting game that will be hard to predict, or maybe not, but the Castleford Tigers going up against the Leeds Rhinos now at the moment. The home side, Castleford, they probably don't have too many injury concerns. If we scroll back up, actually, they were, according to Love Rugby League's injury room at the moment, they were able to get through that weekend, that big 48-16 win over Salford. And of course, as we always preface, we don't know the teams until they actually name the squads long after this recording comes to an end. And looks as though the Leeds Rhinos also got through the weekend and unscathed as well in that big come-from-behind win.
That's positive. Very positive for both clubs heading into this matchup. Especially on the back of the results that they both had, especially Castleford. That would have been a big confidence booster for them. I mean, it was against Salford, but it's still a big win for them.
Yeah, big result for the Castleford Tigers coming out of Magic Weekend, although that result was against Salford.
Yeah.
So you always have to take the Salford performances with a grain of salt. But they're able to, for the best part, they did best Salford for the longest period, and I think that would have pleased Danny Maguire that he's chalked up another win on the board at the moment. They've had to do some manoeuvring of players, to say the least. Of course, Sylvester Namo got released to accommodate Tom Amone, which has worked out fairly well to this extent. I mean, Tex Hoy, hat-trick, it always helps as well when you get your key player is really trying to impress themselves, and having Rowan Milnes and Dejan Arce click with that one as well. That seemed to be consistently all the way through, looking back at their record to this point. Wins, losses, and everything.
There have been wins and losses for both of them. No draws yet.
They haven't had a draw this year.
Yeah, that's what I mean, yet.
Widely expected, Andy Ackers could also be back for the Leeds Rhinos as well, so that could really help Brad Arthur's case, especially after the heroics they did against against Hull FC to come from behind at home.
That was a bit of a surprise. I thought Hull FC had that in the bag. But, again, with the Hull FC playing how they have been playing and going on a downhill spiral, and Leeds has still been fairly consistent, that doesn't surprise me. But they won't want to do that again.
Well, seemingly they've been able to settle the back line as well. Now, if the back line settled, the halves combinations work as well. So in this instance, they've had a settled back line in the last 2 weeks with Josh Sims, Zach Sini, Sam Wood, and Inesinia all lining up, which I think is important. And having Liam Horn come back is just as important as well, especially now that there's a lot of questions surrounding Judah Rimbu as well.
But, yeah, that's a bit of a tricky one, that one.
But other than that, and the boost of Chris Atkins really helped that dummy half rotation. You'd like to think there'd be a bit of a fight out of Castleford for this one, but their defence in that second half patch against Salford wasn't exactly fine art.
Well,
either.
no, because they leaked in 16 points, which they wouldn't have wanted to happen. They would hopefully tighten that up against Leeds, who are playing pretty good footy at the moment. So if you don't tighten your defence, Leeds will tear you to shreds.
Yeah, and I think the way Leeds have been able to hang in there at the moment, I think it's going to be one-way traffic. As much as I think that this game could actually be closer than what it really is, because Castleford have tended to punch above their weight early on, but they haven't really been punching above their weight lately. You look back, they conceded 40 against Saints in round 2. They lost the Leeds in a high-scoring affair earlier on in the year as well. So there's that. But they lost the Catalan, they lost the Leeds, they lost, unfortunately, to Wakefield. But I think Leeds will still be too strong in this one. I think you just look at that big middle rotation, Nikolai Ledsky, Sam Lasone. But again, the edges, Gannon, McDonald. If Brodie Croft and Jake Connor start beating them good ball early on, they'll find holes to punch through, and then you got all the good backs in blue and amber to play off.
Those holes that they punch through will wear out the defence quick, because they're defending along, like trying to do a lot of defensive work to hold them out, and then wear them out quicker. So, and that will just kill the momentum, whatever momentum Castle would have.
They're playing better than what they were at the start of the year, but I still think it's not enough. There's just too much class in the Leeds Rhinos, and if they get Ackers really on the ball early out of dummy half with that crisp service, it's good night, Irene. I think Leeds win this 7-12. I'll expect Jake Connor to do Jake Connor things.
Yeah. Look, Leeds win this one. I'm going to say 7-12 as well. I think Castleford will be somewhat in the fight a little bit, but I think they'll make a bit of a comeback late on in the game once the Leeds have a healthy lead, but it'll be too little too late for them. So, yeah, Leeds 7-12.
Moving on to the south of France, it is the Catalan Dragons at home to the Wigan Warriors, of course. All thinking about Zach Eckersley after that freakish injury that held up play in that win over Lee, but he's set to be on the sidelines, whether they have a young winger or even Abbas Miski back soon. That's could benefit them. Catalan, I have been very disappointed in the Catalan Dragons.
Yeah, so have I. With our grand finalists last year, correct me if I'm wrong.
The year before.
And they're usually one of the top 4 sides. They're not there this year.
They have been outscored 86-24 in their last 2 league fixtures. The cup fixture makes it even worse. But you cannot, in the space of 3 weeks, in both league and cup fixtures, concede 102 points in a 3-week span.
I mean, the only other team that can do that would be Salford or Huddersfield.
But as worse than that, you got the defending champions. Now, Catalan have the benefit of their next 5 home games, with 4 of them being at home, but they're all high-class opponents. Got Wigan, then they got Hull FC, their away game to Hull KR, then they got Lee and Huddersfield on the other side. But I don't know where their minds are at the moment. Defence and attack have just not clicked. If the attack is there, the defence isn't, because they can't close out a game. or they get blown off the park completely with their defence and attack just suffering.
Mm. It's just not like the Catalans side that we've seen over the last couple of years that are pushing for the league leader shield.
No, that's what they should be doing, but
They
they're
should
not.
be, but they're not. Yeah,
Uh, uh,
not whereas what we're used to.
They invested heavily in Luke Keary to try and get them to Old Trafford. They brought Sam Tomkins out of retirement just for this purpose, to get them to Old Trafford. With this current playing group, they should be performing a lot better, but they're not.
No.
They let Hull FC roll over the top of them in round one. They lost a winnable game against Warrington. Then they get blown off the park in their first big loss, where they concede 34 points against them, only generating one try. That's the problem. They only generated 4 tries in their first 3 games.
Wow.
And they've only done 6 in the last 3. Roughly speaking.
That's
Speaking of
just
course.
you can't do that. Like if you want to be pushing and playing high opposition week in, week out, you're gonna have to somehow find attack and fix those numbers up sooner rather than later. Otherwise, you'll keep slipping down the ladder.
And it's the same problem the Saints had as well. They can beat sides below them, like they flogged Castleford, hold them to a single try. They ran over the top of Salford and Huddersfield in back-to-back
First
weeks.
Yep.
But against the sides above them, they got squashed by Hull KR in the Challenge Cup semi-final. They lost to Hull SC at the start of the year. Warrington. They lost to Saints in a game that they shouldn't have really lost.
No, not at all.
Else they should have been able to close that result out, but they just haven't.
No. They're like St. Helens, they're slipping a little bit this year more than what the years have gone by.
And the more disturbing thing is all their key players have been on the park in the last month. Luke Keary, Theo Farge, they've been on the park, maybe not so much as Sam Tomkins.
But still, they're still key players though.
They're just
So
not.
something's not right over in the French team.
In the south of France. You're right. Something's not
Right.
They haven't had Sam Tomkins since the quarter-final showdown, whether he's still injured long-term or not. Elliot Whitehead, I think he was actually banned for that game, so he might be back. I haven't got the best out of Tommy Makinson. They haven't got the best out of Luke Keary. Tavita Pangai Jr.,
Yeah, 50-50.
he's had good patches of games, but they have not delivered altogether.
No.
I've waited for one moment where they've actually put together a decent stretch of league performances. Can't really say they have.
No.
And I got to go again. It's a simple little conclusion. You got to rule in favour of the Wigan Warriors.
Easily. Yes, I know in years gone by, the trip to France has been difficult. But this year, it's probably slightly bit easier. I'm going to have to go with a Wigan victory 7-12. It'll probably be more, but it's been a bit late.
It's a class difference. You look at Field, French, Smith, Wardle, and Semba, so on, so
Mate,
forth.
If Catalans were playing really well along with Wigan, this could have been a juicy matchup, but it's not. It's just not a juicy matchup.
Yeah, they're going to get overwhelmed defensively again, and I just don't see a way out of this for them.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, we have Wakefield at home to the Salford Red Devils. Well, Salford, of course, did not come out of the weekend unscathed. Jaden Nikarima, a casualty out of this one. He picked up an ankle injury late against Castleford, so more than likely not expected to feature.
For probably maybe...
Well, not this weekend against Wakefield.
Maybe a few
Can we
weeks.
try and come up with at least any justifications or hope for Salford at this point?
No. I mean, you can if you want to, but...
Well, I didn't
What
really.
else? What else? It's like what? When Wakefield were last in it, they were absolutely dreadful, and we were just running out of words to describe how they were. This is getting a bit of feeling, but for the same as that, but for Salford. We are running out of words to describe how they're performing week in, week out.
And the fact they did it without Jake Truman, who was meant to be their marquee man, in the hub. halves. Max Jarrett once again sliding in, and then that luxury of bringing Josh Rourke into the side, and it looked well. Dead set, it honestly did. Forward pack, 4 of the tries they ended up scoring of the 7 they actually laid on Warrington. They're just getting good mileage out of all these recruits, and once again, Darryl Powell just seems to be defying the expectations everyone had about Wakefield.
Yeah, Wakefield, what? I think I had them near the bottom of the ladder, if not getting relegated again. But where they are sitting at the moment is...
They're 6th on the table.
Well, there you go.
With 3 wins in their last 4. And these have been some impressive results as well. They beat Castleford, forced Catalan deep to only go down by 4 in Golden Point. Then they beat Castleford again, which, again, it's not much, but still. And then Warrington, again, the second time they've beaten them this year. So impressive. There's a lot to like about Wakefield at the moment. But what would you say is that absolute strength they're working with at the moment?
Don't know. It's hard to get a bit of read on because the oppositions are being hot and cold as well. So, yeah, I think it's just the consistency for Wakefield at the moment. They're in a nice little rhythm, and it's paying off for them.
Kais Faatili has a near strike rate of 0.5 per game at the moment. He has featured 10 times, both off the bench and starting. 4 tries already to his name.
Yeah, right. Pretty impressive.
In the space of back-to-back weeks, he scored a front rower has scored 4 tries in 2 weeks. How crazy is that?
You don't hear that very often across the southern or northern hemisphere of rugby league. At all.
And
that's just unheard of.
Defensively, they've really stacked up. In the prior 2 weeks in Easter, they had conceded a total of 36 points. Defence in the last 2 weeks only conceded 18.
So they've improved.
Yeah, they've been, in 2-week turnaround, they've been able to cut their defence down by virtually half.
Half, yeah.
And Salford, it's going to be another ugly afternoon. I'll just put it that way.
That's if we make it.
Then McDonald, he's going to have to be the cheat code. I think he should actually be playing fullback at the moment.
You reckon? Over Ryan Riley?
He's the most important player Salford still have left.
True.
Which is saying a lot.
Yeah.
They need him to be playing fullback.
But then
he needs to be sparked.
Well, where'd you put Briley then?
He'll be in the halves again.
Yeah, true.
But he needs to get his hands on the ball as much as he can to give Salford any chances of registering a second win for the season.
Well, against Wakefield, I highly doubt they will get a second win this soon. To be quite honest with you, I think Salford's next win would be against... Definitely not against
no one.
Maybe Hull FC, if they don't pull their finger out.
Not even against Hull FC. Their run ahead is a suicide run.
Maybe Castleford.
No, they already lost to Castleford.
Yeah, but fortunes can change. Definitely not against Hull KR.
I just feel sorry for Salford's players and fans. Again,
thank you. You give me sympathy for once.
It's going to be a big Wakefield win. I'll call it 21 plus. They're highly motivated at the moment. Defensively, they're starting to turn it around, and I think now that they're in the top 6, they've got a good opportunity to try and string a few good wins together at the moment. Tight competitions against Leeds and League before they have to play Wigan and Hull KR. But they've got some winnable games in and amongst that, with the certain sides not being well in form at the moment. And I think they'll try and build on this attacking juggernaut they've seemed to unlock. And if they get Jake Truman back into the side, I think Darryl Powell will consider that a bonus.
Yeah.
But it's just going to come down to they'll find holes opening up all over the field, but I think they'll mainly concentrate on their left-hand side, where Josh Griffin has really started to find some form as their best performing edge forward, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be a massive Wakefield victory, 21 plus. I've got no hope for Salford at all this year.
No, that probably wasn't the best analysis we could give you, but we're still trying to work with the information we have. But that is full time from us this week. If you like this part of the NRL debrief, if we had from the other day, just make sure you leave a like, hit that subscribe button, and click the bell. Click the bell down below to allow for notifications so you never miss a week of rugby league action. Don't forget to give us a follow on our Facebook, Instagram, and X pages at SideChatYT. It's also our hashtag. Hope you enjoyed the best we could do it ever so far tonight, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week. Along with Mark Hendry, I'm Connor Marcellus, and you have been listening to the Sideline Chat. See you next time.
See you next time, folks.